Opponents are out for Boston College for next season. It looks tough, which means BC has got to get going now to get better for the 2026 season.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news and analysis and details on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast, part of the Locked On Network, the number one sports network out there. And it's free and available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. On today's show, what was the biggest disappointment in this 2-10 season? I'm going to talk about what that was. We're going to look at, on the positive side, Lewis Bond is heading to the NFL. What are we thinking about that? I'll tell you where I think would be a great place for him to end up. And BC's not schedule is out, but their opponents are out. And this is not a conference game I don't think we talked about on the show. I need to get into it and why I hate it. We'll get into that in just a moment. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Okay, so on Tuesday, kind of out of the blue, the ACC released the opponents for all of the schools in their conference. Now, it's weird. If you look at what's going on, I think it's 12 schools are playing 9 ACC's teams and 3 out-of-conference teams. The other schools are playing 8 conference teams and 4 out-of-conference games. Well, Boston College is one of the few schools that has 8 conference games, excuse me. So they're one of the few. Now, we'll talk about what that means in a moment, but you saw the schedule. Now, some of you don't know what the schedule is. I've been sitting on it for a while. I posted about one of the last editions, but with out-of-conference teams first. We know that BC is going to play Cincinnati at Cincinnati on September 5th. They're going to host Maine on September 9th, host Rutgers on September 12th, and head to Notre Dame, or they're facing Notre Dame on the road on November 21st. That is 3 Power 4 programs that you're playing out of conference after a 2-10 season. I am not a big fan of this. Now, 3/4 of the schedule was done a while ago. This was before the season. So you can't really hate on that because Cincinnati, that's been on the books for a while. Maine's fine, whatever. And Rutgers has been on there for at least 3 or 4 years. The part that I don't like, the part that I'm like, why would you do this to yourself, was, and again, I don't know the exact date of when they announced it, but FBS schedules, which is usually really good with this stuff, only found out that BC scheduled Notre Dame on the road in like October. So this seems like a last-minute thing, which then makes me wonder, why would you do this? You just had one of the worst seasons in school history, and you added a 3rd Power 4 game on the road against a team that was a playoff team last year and is going to be extra ticked off because they got left out of the playoffs this year. I don't understand this one at all. I know there's a lot of folks out there like you guys that are going to say to me, AJ, you want to play if you want to be a big boy school, you got to play the big boy school. Well, I say this, yes, to an extent, but getting the snot beat out of you on the road, which you lost last time you played at Notre Dame 44-0, does nothing to help your program. It sends it backwards. So I would much rather have played for a win. Maybe there was some issue that I don't know about. Maybe there was you just couldn't schedule a team. All the other slots were locked up. I don't know. But this strikes me, just me, that, this is a Power 5 program, Power 4 program that has a lot of history. Let's play them. Your schedule is really, really hard. And this is before we even see what BC does in the transfer portal, which they're going to now have to do really well if they want to stand a chance of really improving next year. Because their home slate isn't that bad. If you look at who they play, first of all, They're playing 6 home games next year. That gets a big from me. 6 home games? What is this? Again, that's why a road game against Notre Dame. What are you doing? Go, schedule Eastern Michigan. I don't care. Just get a home game on the books. But you're now down to 6 home games, and they're going to host Florida State. You could, if you're better, you could beat them. Pitt, play better. You can't play like you played them last year. Syracuse should beat them, but they're going to have Angeli back. And Virginia Tech, they're going to have James Franklin. So, yeah, there's winnable games in there if you improve and they don't take huge steps forward. You go on the road, though. Look at this road schedule that they got to play. They got to play on the road against Duke, ACC champions. Georgia Tech, who should have been in the ACC championship game. Miami, who should have been in the ACC championship game. And SMU, who should have been in the ACC championship game. That's tough. That is a ruthless schedule for a team that was 2-10. If they had played better, I wouldn't be sitting here saying, let's get it a little bit more challenged, see what we can do. We saw what they could do last year. It wasn't good, and I know injury is a big part of this, and they're making changes, and they're trying to get things better. Yes, great. But you look at that schedule, 6 home games, 2 Power 4 out-of-conference games. It's tough. You've got a tough schedule ahead of you. So BC's got to slam it out of the park in the transfer portal. You're going to get hopefully a lot of, as I said on yesterday's show, the talent that you lost, -2, I would think. Dylan Lonergan and Davian Crouch are the 2 ones that kind of sting that you lost. Everyone else that you've lost, you can replace. I strongly think, no knock to those guys, but you can find players as good or if not better. The big key is going to be getting healthy again and getting talent, because you have positions like edge rusher, quarterback, and linebacker where you have nothing. You have positions that you need to add depth, and you have players that you just need to get back healthy again. Guys like Amari Jackson, guys like Jaden Skeet. These are going to be major players that are going to help hopefully get your team up to that next level. Looking at this, but the last piece I want to talk about this has nothing to do with BC's schedule. But this whole rollout with half the teams playing 9 or 3/4 of the teams playing 9 games and the other one's playing 8. This is the most ACC thing I've ever heard. They can't figure out how to get out of their own way. Yeah, you play 9 games. Well, then make everyone play 9 games. You could have made BC do it a couple months ago if you stopped them from scheduling Notre Dame. They've been right there too. But it looks to me that this season, there's a chance that you could have teams getting left out that played 9 ACC games that are right on the same edge as the team that plays 8 ACC games. It's going to be a mess. It's going to get teams angry again. It's just not really well thought out. I'm sure that, the tiebreakers this year were ridiculous. It should have never been Duke in the ACC championship. Well, congratulations for winning, but you get teams like Miami, Georgia Tech. They were come on, guys. They were better than Duke, and they got left out because of these crazy tiebreakers. This is just going to be worse. I don't know what it is now. I'm sure it's out there, and we can read up on that, but the ACC is such a mess. Compare it to the other Power 4 conference. What are you doing? All these other Power conferences, it feels like the ACC is, they don't have they're not thinking straight, and they're playing tiddlywinks while, SEC and ACC, Big Ten are playing chess. That's what it feels like. So this is silly. BC's schedule is tough. We don't know right now. We don't know when they're playing who. That'll also be a big part of the rollout. It looks, the first out of conference game is until September 5th. So I'm guessing they're going to play an ACC team to start the season off, which they did 2 years ago when they played Florida State and they beat them. That's going to be interesting to find out as well, but we don't know what that's going to look like yet. Now, in a moment, we'll talk about a player that is out, and that's Lewis Bond, who is heading to the NFL. I'll explain what that means. And another player enters the portal. We'll talk about both of those players in just a moment. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. I was watching the Patriots and Bills last weekend. I got that sense. You know, you're watching a football game, you get the sense things are starting to turn. And I started to do some live betting on FanDuel where the Bills, I was like touchdown. Started hitting those touchdowns. And with the Patriots, I was like punting and field goals and started to hit. And it was crazy. And you could do it. And I was just doing it drive after drive after drive, just putting a little down here and there. And boom, you know, by the end, yeah, I've probably made like 7 or 8 wages and I hit on most of them. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. With FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black, and I got to tell you guys about our Everydayers Club again, because this is getting me so excited because I think you guys are going to love this. I want to tell you about the regular Everydayers Club. And thank you for making Locked On Boston College your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already listened to Locked On BC, your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Boston College with no interruptions. Members only Discord access and more, including, I believe, access to our merch shop. All access for just $5 a month or $50 a year. All you need to do is go to lockedonbostoncollege.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. I'm totally digging this Discord. I have never used Discord before, but it's a lot of fun. And all other hosts, if you want to join up and go give crap to the Syracuse hosts or the Notre Dame hosts, you can find them. We're all on there. Believe me, they give it to me too. So come on over. It's $50 for the entire year, ad free. Get all these other perks. Sign up today. Now, I want to talk about some good news because we need good news. When there's BC news and it's good, we're gonna just dive right into that and get into it. And that is Lewis Bond, who is entering, not entering the transfer portal. He's entering the NFL draft next year, which is not a surprise. We knew he was out of eligibility and that he was, finished with his time at Boston College. So the fact that he entered is not a big surprise. But he made his graphic. And in a minute, I'll get into what he did at BC. But this is more a vibes. I will tell you that this is one of the guys that you talk about a player that exemplifies what Boston College is all about. That was a Boston College player and a Boston College man for 5 straight years and be proud to root for him. That is Lewis Bond to a T. This guy was an exemplary player, an exemplary human, and everything you wished for when you bring a recruit into a school. He played tough. He played hurt. He made tough catches. He made clutch catches. He did everything. And this is coming from one of those guys that, just like every other BC recruit that has become big, was a 3-star recruit out of Chicago. He came in with his roommate or friend, Dante Reynolds, who never ended up playing here, and Bond became a legend. He owns a lot of the wide receiver records that I never thought, when it happened with Zay Flowers, would ever get broken. He did all of that here, and he did it in a way that was humble, that was never embarrassing, and he did it in a style that made you watch him and go, wow, this is a guy that you just love to watch play football. And I look at what he did. This past season he had 88 catches to lead him to program history, breaking the all-time reception record. He had 213 receptions in his career with 2,385 yards and 11 touchdowns. I mean, in a year when you won 2 games, you could point to almost every single game where Lewis Bond made big catches. Even if you lost, he was always out there making plays. Every single week, Lewis Bond was someone we were talking about because he made great runs. He was tough. He was hard to cover. He was quick. So now it's off to the NFL. And you got to think this is a guy that has a future in the NFL. Someone's going to get him and they're going to love him. Now, does he have the traits to jump off the page and go, whoa, he's going to be like Zay Flowers? Because Zay Flowers, we all remember his, the way he was electric out there and made those like cuts and everything like that. Bond doesn't have that. That being said, he's a cerebral player who does everything well and doesn't hurt you and will make you plays when you need it most. Someone's going to get him. He may be a later draft pick, but I can see him sticking on. As a Patriots fan, I would love to see, slot receiver Lewis Bond next year. And there's other teams, I'm sure, maybe when if Hafley takes the Giants job, right? He was the one that recruited him. Wouldn't he love to have Lewis Bond back with him? There's so many teams that could end up getting him. And I just see him as a guy that in a couple years, we're going to be going, wow, 6th round draft pick and he's getting 60 catches a year. I could see it happening. That's the kind of player he is. So very, very cool. I'm so glad that he stayed. When Thomas Castellano, if you go back to his history, right? Go back to 2023. That, there was that big time when they were getting ready for the Fenway Bowl, and Tommy Castellanos was doing those vlogs, with Lewis. The two of them seemed tight. So when Tommy blew up and left, my thought was going, I wonder if Lewis is going to go with him. He didn't. He stayed at BC. He things got, he stayed at BC. You had players last year. Clearly, Davion Crouch didn't want to stick around after things got tough. Bond played. He could have just, once things started to fall apart, he could have just sat out and then transferred and tried something else somewhere. He didn't. He played through it. He played, through that whole thing. So I want to say, this is a player, even in a 2-10 season, he was a joy to watch. And I hope a team, and I would love to keep watching him. So I hope he ends up with the Patriots. But honestly, anywhere he ends up, he's going to be successful. Now, additionally, I want to just pivot on one other quick news item because I want to talk about it and make sure you guys are aware of it. Cedric Lott entered the transfer portal. Now, Cedric Lott is another wide receiver. He was 6'5". He's about as big as Reed Harris. He came here in 2023 and, class of 2024, committed in 2023 from Texas, Dallas. He was a guy that played wide receiver, but only started playing wide receiver after playing basketball for most of the time. He's a big guy, so they threw him at wide receiver and like, oh, wow. He was a project from day one. This was a guy that they brought in with the hopes that he would turn into the next, big wide receiver. It didn't work out that way. He got hurt during the camp this year. Most of summer, I feel like he was out. He played 5 snaps this year. I was surprised when I saw him in that Syracuse game, but I guess they just wanted to get him out there. But this kind of brings up a point that I wanted to bring up. And this is not a knock on Cedric Lott, but Darrell Wyatt's gone. And you look, I mentioned this before, but it adds to that my fuel. Darrell Wyatt's, center of where he was powerful was in the Texas area. And your first reaction when you hear that he's a good Texas recruiter is like, oh boy, Texas, let's get these guys in here. It's football. That's what I want. But you got to just look at the track record of the guys that he brought in from that area or tried to bring in from that area. The amount of decommitments, I think back to Josiah Martin, who was committed forever. There was the kid that was a 4-star that was committed here that ended up at Purdue, but then, decommitted there and ended up someplace else. Then you have this laundry list of guys that transferred out, whether it was Jaden Williams, now it's Cedric Lott. Like, Texas wasn't working. And this is the latest example of it not working. And honestly, I'm not sure why Cedric is leaving. Maybe it's because Wyatt's gone. I don't know. But it just kind of is that theme, right? Like, You got all these wide receivers that are coming from Texas, and none of them are working out. So this is just that latest one. And, because it wasn't working out, you like to see them getting these scholarships back. You had Jack Funk, you had Cy Clemens. You're up to 11 or 12 right now. I think BC needs between, I've said it before on yesterday's show, 15 to 20, more towards 20, because you need quality depth. And if you got a guy like Kenyatta Watson that can go out and get them, you got to flip this roster. You got to get some of these guys that are just not going to play out so that you can get it. It's the nature of the beast, right? They're getting paid, but now you have to be able to be more upfront with that. So that was my thoughts on that too. Now, in a moment, I want to get into one big thought I had. What was the biggest disappointment in this last year? And I'll give you my thoughts on that in just a moment. Now, you know me. You know I love talking about Omaha Steaks. This is my favorite thing to talk about. The holidays are here, and whether you're hosting family, planning the perfect gift, or just trying to get things simple and delicious, Omaha Steaks can be easier there. From effortless holiday entertaining to unforgettable gifts, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience straight to your door. And what makes it even better, with Omaha Steaks, you can always know exactly what you're getting. U.S. certified tender steaks, premium proteins, gourmet sides, and decadent desserts that make everyone feel appreciated. I got a box a couple years ago for my wife's grandmother. It came with that was mouth-watering good. It had sides. I remember having this like apple pastry with it that was so delicious. It was a gift that I still talk about to this day because it was unique. It was well thought of, and it was delicious. I had a nice date night with my wife because of this great gift. So save big on gourmet gifts and holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com, and for an additional $35 off, use code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. I'm putting that Everydayer Club down there. Make sure you sign up. I want to see you guys out there. I want to see you on the Discord. Get on there. Become either, premium all access tier or the basic tier. I want to see you guys on there. Now, 2-10. BC went 2-10 last year, and it was awful. It was awful. Like, you guys all know. Like, by the end of the season, you're just like, come on, guys. Let's wrap this up. I want to get moving on to the offseason and figure out how we're going to fix this. But I want to bring up, post-mortem, what was the biggest disappointment of this year? What was the thing that you look back at and go, wow, how did that happen? You can take injuries. That wasn't a disappointment. It's just to me, it's either a conditioning thing, which I watched them. They were conditioning quite hard, or it was just fluky. Watching what happened, everything is going to be tinged by injury, right? The offense maybe not so much, but when you're talking about the disappointment, one of the things I said that would be the key to this defense was the secondary. Now, again, it got banged up bad, but the safeties weren't hurt. But you lost your two starting cornerbacks, Amari Jackson, Syer Torrance. They were gone. We saw what Amari Jackson could do, and losing him was big. But watching what that secondary did and how overwhelmed they got, and again, not all of that's their faults. Some of it is, some of it's not. It was so disappointing because I watched the camp. I watched so many practice. I mean, guys, I went to 15 practices this summer out of 20 that they had. I went to a lot. I sat out there in Chestnut Hill for you all, and I could tell you that secondary looked completely different when they were healthy. So to watch them get hurt and then turn into what happened during the season stunk. It was to watch. And so when I look at disappointments, you could point to the offensive line. You could point to when you're 2-10, there's this point, you could point anywhere you want. The biggest disappointment for me has to be the secondary because the talent was there. The way it ended up, you had a healthy Syer Torrance and Amari Jackson. You would have had KP Price in a much better spot. Maybe he would have had to still play linebacker, but who knows? Omar Thornton, we've seen what he could do, and TJ Green or whatever, or even Cam Martinez, who got hurt. We always forget about him. He played 3 or 4 games and he was hurt. You have all these guys. You could have masked a little bit And your defense probably would have been closer to mediocre than abysmal. And that's my point here. The defense was missing so many spots, but that talent was there secondary. When they got hurt, it just turned on a dime. That was the biggest disappointment for me. What do you think was the biggest disappointment? If you're on the subtext, you can text me what your thoughts are, and I'll read them on the show. Or you can leave them in the comments section. All right, folks. We'll be back tomorrow. It seems like the portal is releasing in drips and drabs, so I'm sure we'll probably have like one player out. If there's anything to go with the defensive coordinator, and folks, you've asked me, it's been really quiet. I mean, if you're on our subtext, you heard me. I knew who the offensive line coach and I knew who the wide receiver coach was. I have no clue what's going on with defensive coordinator, and I've been reaching out to a lot of different people. So hopefully get some news on that soon because they got to start getting that in gear. But thank you all for following. Again, become part of the Everydayers Club. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Join us on TikTok if you have a TikTok account. I just hit 1,000 followers on there. That's pretty cool. I'm hip with that. I'm in Instagram, Facebook, if that's your jam. And I hope to see you all again tomorrow. And thank you for making us your first listen every day. Really appreciate all that for all our everydayers. And I'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.